Hi, I'm Katie McClellan from De La Soul Yoga, and this is a video tutorial on crow pose, Bakasana. So I'll demonstrate crow pose to start, and then I'll go over 3 different orientations of the pose, which we covered in teacher training, leading up to the full posture itself at the end once again. So the biggest misalignment I see in this pose is that folks try to come into it with their knees fairly low on the upper arms, and what happens is the triceps or the flesh of the upper arms gets pushed out and the feet are apart, and so there's this tipping forward action, and it's kind of like this. So the energy of the pose is going out and down. Okay, so yes, you may get lift off, but you don't feel like you're flying. You certainly don't feel like you have found a sweet spot in the posture. So the way you find the sweet spot is you work really hard to keep your big toes and your heels together when you come into it, because when you squeeze your heels together, it activates your transverse abdominals. So it might feel harder at first, but try to get used to doing it this way. And then most importantly, what we're trying to do here is keep the tricep flesh squeezed to the inside of the upper arm bone. So a nice way to come into it is to start with your palms facing up. I'm squeezing my knees into my upper arms, and I'm going to maintain that pressure as I take my hands out. So if you see my triceps, they're to the inside, and my knees have kind of formed this divot on the upper arm. So now with my knees squeezing in, it's a lot easier to go up. So I'm pushing the floor away. My shoulders are going a little bit past my wrists. My upper back is round, so I'm not trying to reach the chest forward too much, and my heels are together. So instead of this, we want this. Okay, so it's all done through the adductors, the transverse abdominals. So if you'll remember in teacher training, I taught you a couple of ways of approaching this pose so you can explore the different parts of your body that need to be working without having to worry about the precarious piece of balancing on your hands. So I've got my heels together, big toes touching, knees are open. I round my back forward and come into prayer position with the hands. My elbows press out, my knees squeeze the upper arm flesh to the inside of the bone. Then I maintain that pressure and I simply reach the arms out in front of me. So my knees are squeezing in so hard that if I were to take my arms out, they would snap together. That's how much pressure you want through the knees. Same thing, my arms are pushing out so hard that if I took my knees away, the arms would also fall out. So there's a tremendous amount of work going on here within the stillness of the pose, okay? Next step would be to try it from Navasana, from boat pose. So again, big toes, heels touch. I'm gonna pull the knees in towards my armpits. So I'm really feeling the hip flexors working here. And then I'm gonna round the back, get the arms to the insides, squeeze my knees in, and try the pose from here. Upper back is round, gaze is forward, heels, big toes touching. And the last way to work with this is to try it from your back. So I can't lay all the way down because of the mic, but you would try to lift your hips up, your tailbone up off the floor, and you would take your arms to the insides of the knees just like we did in these other 3 variations. Finally, if you find yourself or your student is having a hard time getting the knees high up on the arms, try using a block to elevate the feet. This is going to help create a little more mobility in the hips so that you can get those knees up nice and high. And the last tip I want you to really remember, this is really important because this will avoid face plants. When you bring the weight forward, you're about to take lift off and lift the feet. Do not push off with the feet. That's how you end up falling. You want to shift all the weight into the hands before lifting the feet so that when you lift the feet, it's just like an afterthought. So I could just take the heels to my hips and I could bring them back down and to the hips and bring them down. So you see, when I lift the feet, I'm not creating a momentum forward. Okay, I've already got all my weight in my hands. You can claw with your fingers to help prevent yourself from falling forward, and your gaze is just slightly ahead of your hands. You can also use a bolster there as a crash pad. So this concludes the tutorial on Bakasana. Namaste.